You want to get ulnar deviation to restore the radial inclination because it's been pushed this way, right? Because you land and they push that way, they shorten and they dorsally tilt. So we need to control it sort of in 3 planes. We want to get length back, we want to get the ulnar deviation to get back the radial inclination, so we want to do that, and then we want to get the volar tilt back, so we're going to reverse the dorsiflexion of the distal fragment. So we need a bar, and so to cut it, the template, we start in the middle of the material. So this is 12.5 centimetres wide. We start in the middle, we go down 2.5 centimetres, make a little mark, and then come across 2.5 centimetres, make another little mark. And then we cut on the 45 to that point, and we just cut out literally the width of my finger, and you want to keep it narrow so that when you cut back your edges, you've got the space to do that. All right, so that gives me a little window to go over my thumb. But you can see this material is all too big, so I need to cut an arc for the knuckles. So I've got to cut through the space through here and across the knuckles. So to do that, I just cut from here, curve it around, and then taper off, because it just keeps tapering off here. So once I've done that, you can see that this is now starting to fit the shape of my hand, and that tail's in the palm of my hand, right? And so that's giving me a 3/4 splint. So I've got most of the material on the dorsal aspect because I want to really correct the volar tilt. So I need more support there. I've got this bar here that's going to allow the splint to control ulnar deviation. If I didn't have this bar here and I just had a volar dorsal splint, which would be more coverage, I wouldn't be able to control ulnar deviation. Right, so you need the bar. And then all I'm going to do now is round off my edges at the bottom. And that's my template. And now I would just cut it back 1 centimetre all the way around and loop this out. And basically what I've got now is, if you think about it, a whale. And I always mention that because you can always remember what the tail of the whale. Can you see that? The tail of the whale goes in the palm of your hand for a Colles. And then it's the opposite if you've got a Smith's fracture. Does anyone know the mechanism of a Smith's fracture? It's exactly the same. Yep, that's it. You fall back, or you just don't even get your hands up in time when you fall forward. And so in that instance, you want to flip this over. You still need the bar to control the ulnar deviation because you still want to be able to push them that way. But now you're trying to reduce their volar tilt. They've got an exaggerated volar tilt because they've landed like that. So now I'll do it again with it's just good to talk through. Everyone looks at this and goes, how am I going to remember that template? But it's really just go to the middle, 2.5 centimetres down, 2.5 across, cut that 45, and then you're just cutting back for your knuckles and curving off the end.
Sounds easy.
Sounds easy.
Let's see you do it again.
All right, come on, patient. To measure here for distal radius. So in this position, if you put something in the patient's hand and just let them fall, for Colles, that's not a bad position. Sorry, I put it there. That's not the worst position to have them resting in because they're already sort of getting to where you want to reduce them. But in terms of measuring, just so you can see, I'm just going to show you. You're looking at obviously the distal palmar crease and 2 fingers really from the elbow crease. So that's the measurement of the length of my splint. Material.
And this is a 12.5?
12.5 because we're going to do a 3/4. So I need a little bit more. And check this one if it's not been shut properly again. I'll look like it. So to shut it properly, we're just pushing it back. Whole hand disappears inside. We flatten out the material to get the air out of it. put a crease about halfway, and then lay that crease over the ridge and just push down, and we're sealed. And we've got a nice flat edge, so only no folds. I'll take this out, it's actually okay, which is pretty amazing. Start.
So you can do it slowly?
Yeah, in the middle.
Yep.
2.5 centimetres. Come down 2.5 centimetres from the middle. Go across. Sorry, I'm going to go to the other edge. I like to go to the other edge because then I know I've got better padding. So I want to be on the closed edge, sorry. So start at the top, come down 2.5, come across 2.5, make a little dot.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm going to cut at a 45 to that dot. And then I'm going to cut just a little bit around and go quite a nice thin amount of material out. And to get my corner, I'll just cut it like that. Right, so that gives me my little cutout, and it's literally, for me, I'm thinking the width of my little finger. Right, because you're going to fit your thumb, but by the time you cut around the edge, you need it to be start thin. And then I'm just going to cut for the shape of the metacarpals. So I'm going to come around and just cut an arc like that. So I'll keep coming around because have a look at the patient's hand. When you put that in, you can see how that keeps coming around. And I know once I cut back my edges, this is going to drop just a little bit lower. So I'm happy with that. I can see that's parallel to her knuckles. You happy with that?
Mm-hmm.
Then I can check my length at this point as well. I'm a little bit long, but that's okay. So open this up. And this is one where I will tend to open it right up. And I will cut back my edge.
So about a centimetre.
Yeah. And I will cut back the edge here. It's not quite a centimetre here. You're a bit more forgiving. And I'll show you a trick just to make sure you've got enough padding if you're worried. I've got all that, and then I can cut back my edge here. I'm being generous here because I measured myself as a bit long. And I don't mind if I have extra padding at the bottom because I can just fold that over, pick up all my bits, put them in the bin. And I can fold that up. And again, I always check with my fingers that I've got that padding gap all the way around. Now what I can do nothing to stop me if I'm worried about the thumb. Say I've got a patient that's got really papery skin and I want to be 100% on the web space. Nothing to stop me from doing that. That's probably a little bit big, but that's easy to fix. I'm just protecting that web space. I can check in there. Check in my hand. Yep, that's going to be fine. I'm just going to take out and make that a little bit narrower. Got a little bit more room to move there. What I could feel was it wasn't quite sitting in the palm of her hand. So you'll see that the bar is not it's not that thick, but it doesn't have to be. And that gives me actually the space that I needed for the web space, so we're good. And so when you're putting this on, you want to make sure that I'll just roll your hand over and so you can see, I'll take that out so you can see. When you're putting it on, you want to make sure that the bar sits right down in the palm of the hand. When you're putting it on, it'll tend to block the metacarpal heads. And so you have to be mindful to actually pull it by the tip and get it down around the thenar eminence and away from the metacarpal heads. Otherwise, it'll tend to rest there, right in the way. Okay, that's my other sort of tip. So then, same process as before in terms of getting it on. You're going to wrap it around, just drop it over, and capture that and mould it. And so here you can see how it's sitting high. I've got to actually pick it up and pull it around. I'll just show you that again. So it wants to sit there. If I just kept bandaging it and pulled through, it'd be there, but I'm going to pull it around. And you just sort of got to, like, if I don't point it out, you won't see it. But now I'm going to go to the bottom of the fifth metacarpal head, come through the web space. And again, this is my point to lock it in and come through here in the palm, lay that flat.
Have you halved it over again, you know, when you...
Yeah, so it's just that fold, and I'm folding it always towards the web space, so I'm not having the edges on it. I've got the folded bit towards the web space, but then I straighten on the back and then just flatten it out, and then I can work my way down. And because the first bandage is just to mould, and if I get to the bottom here and I think I'm too long, you can actually either fold it or you could cut it, and that's okay. And while the material's still soft, that won't be a problem, although this is a bit hard because it wasn't shut properly, this bottom edge of it. So, and I'll show you another trick now. I wouldn't normally do this, but because I've cut it back with no padding, if you had to do it, I'm just showing you how you can problem solve. It's not what I plan to do, but you can literally tuck it in like that. And then continue on bandaging, and when you come around with the cohesive, that will capture it. So you've got two options there. You could fold it, but I wouldn't have been able to fold that one because it was going off. You can see I've captured that, and you can feel that edge at the end, and it'll be fine. All right, and then I can just tuck that in. Ideally, I didn't point out this before, if I'm going to tuck in the bandage, I try and do it where I'm not on the splint. Because you know you'll worry about pressure areas. That's more likely to give you a pressure problem than not. Now, I didn't wet this because I know we're talking, so wanted plenty of time to do the moulding and I want us to compare, but I would wet this normally when I'm moulding it so it goes off in time. So the mould that I want to do, I always have to drop on my knee. I have another friend of mine who has it in sort of this position. As long as you can get enough volar tilt, because I find I can't get the volar tilt unless I drop on my knee. So I start off trying to get my length back by holding 2 fingers. If you hold 4 fingers, you tend to crush the fingers when you pull and it's not comfortable. You can feel that already, and I'm not pulling very hard. If I hold 2, I can pull quite hard. And it's fine, right? And it also, once you put my hand here, the heel of my hand is level with the ulna and the head of the ulna, and that's pretty much at the level of the fracture. If you think about what's happening, if you're below the head of the ulna, because you're that much below, that's going to be pretty much underneath the fracture on the other side relatively. And I'm at a 45 because I'm wanting to block for ulnar deviation, but I'm also trying to block to get volar tilt. So I've got to be at a 45 and I'm holding that. And then I look at the fingers and I think, where do I need to go with my moulding? And I need to grab the radial styloid and pull in that direction. So I'm sort of, when I say pull, I'm pushing with my hand, but I'm pulling with my elbow. So I'm coming around the corner. And you can see the split lift up. Can you see as I do that, it's lifting up, and that's when you get the patient to be the third point. So this is the fulcrum, this is the distal lever arm, and that's the proximal one. And so that's the mould, and then you're holding that. And so this is like if a patient that doesn't have a fracture, this is uncomfortable. And I'm using this part of my hand to sort of hold the radial styloid. That's my handle on both points, is that sort of middle part of my hand. You can see where I fell over on video.
Oh, what happened?
I was just doing a fitness class and I ran around a corner and there was dirt on the path. And I went from one side of the path to the other.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh God.
I stayed up on my feet for quite a while. The guy behind me said, with a bit of a chuckle.
In slow motion.
Yeah. Had to eventually put my hands down to stay upright.
Too fast.
No, I wish. And so yeah, you're holding that for quite a while when this isn't wet, and then when it's going off, you'll feel like it's starting to go dead. It is starting to go off, just because it's hot in here, and I always think of this: the fracture should be reduced. This isn't getting the reduction. This is maintaining the reduction. So you should have already done your reduction. So they would have shortened, exaggerated the deformity to allow slack to then bring it over. So it should be reduced, but what you're doing by doing this moulding is creating almost like a buttress to push that fragment, to keep pushing it where it needs to go, to hold it there, like a buttress on a church wall. This hand is really that buttress.
So pulling on the fingers, is that when you reduce it, or are you saying...
Well, that's helping me to get my length back, but that also reminds me of the direction, how I need to come around the corner.
Yeah.
It helps me think about what I'm doing with my hands, and I'm just making sure it is out to length. I haven't lost it.
So you're assuming it's reduced by green whistle or whatever you need to do, you pull and and then you're whacking that on.
Yeah, and then this is just reinforcing that, and you're maintaining the reduction. And you're creating a cast that's not going to allow it to slip back, because the muscles, all the long abductors and extensors of the thumb are just going to want to pull it back out of position. So you're working against them. And then once you're happy with that mould, then you do your second bandage and check all your edges and tighten it up.